Hello. As many of you know, I started surfing and it's been fantastic and great. Caught some good waves. I can pop up in a snap now, meaning I can like get to my feet really quickly. When I was first learning, it was a kind of a slow process of arms, right foot, left foot, trying to like balance, almost standing up. Um, but there was some crazy stuff that happened along the way, and I had to have persistence to get to where I am now. So the very first time I went out, I got stung by a stingray in Newport Beach. It hurt so bad, and I thought I had stepped on a rock. And then my wife was telling me a story, and my foot was hurting, and I was having trouble concentrating on the story because my foot was hurting so bad. I was like, why would a rock hurt my foot like this? I mean, I've stepped on a rock before. I know what it feels like, but this was unlike any pain I'd had from stepping on something. So I interrupted her. I said, I think I may have stepped on a stingray because we had actually talked about that. You're supposed to shuffle your feet. Instead of standing left, right, left, right, left, right, you're supposed to shuffle. So if you bump into a stingray, they swim off. But if there's a stingray and you step on one, they go and they sting you. And it's horrible, horrible pain. That happened my first time ever surfing. So we went home and we put it in a hot bath. I actually was, I don't think I actually cried, but I thought I might cry. It was so horrible. But when I put it under hot water in the tub, the pain went away. And that's when I was sure that it was a stingray that got me, because that's, that's the cure for stings. My foot today it still has the stinger in it. This was 4 months ago. And my right foot where I got stung doesn't look like my left foot. There's a circular bump, and in the middle there's still a stinger. So that's kind of crazy that when I'm walking around, I'm part stingray. But that's part of what I had to go through to be persistent to get to the point where I'm starting to almost become an intermediate surfer, getting out of the beginner phase and starting to get into the intermediate. Also, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. a bunch to go surfing with my neighbor, and I hated that. But it was really cool being out in Huntington Beach when the sun's coming up. You see all the palm trees. It looks like a commercial for California. The rest of the country's all asleep, and you're just out like surfing Huntington Beach. It is really picturesque and amazing. But you're very sleepy, and you're sleepy for the rest of the day too. And it's so freezing sometimes, I had trouble moving my arms and my legs. So it's miserably cold, you're miserably tired. I also was afraid of sharks. So this part of me learning to surf overlapped with Shark Week. So that wasn't helpful. My wife showed me a couple pictures of like a 20-foot shark in Cape Cod, and that was terrifying. So when it's up to your waist, it's not like really that scary. But once you get up to your shoulders, then that's where things can get a little dicey. And when you paddle out farther, you might have 30 feet below you. So that's when someone could be below you, checking you out, eyeing you. That's freaking terrifying. So I was tired, miserably cold, like shaking. I was so afraid that I was out there and I thought a shark could be underneath me. And I have a Christian Bible, and it shows all these surfers that survived shark attacks, and it shows their boards with like the bite mark, the gigantic bite mark taken out of it. And one of the encouraging stories was, hey, this shark was about to get this guy's head, but then another great white shark bumped him out and it missed his head. And that was supposed to be encouraging, but that just terrified me. So there's, Bethany Hamilton, who got her arm bitten off, and they said her next door neighbor had his leg bitten off. So many people have had terrifying encounters with sharks. Somebody just died from a shark attack on a surfer. So I decided, though, that I can't give YouTube mini sermons and then wuss out from doing something that's scary, because the Bible says that you're totally protected, that angels will hold you up in their hands. So if you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. So I just kind of white-knuckled through it. I read the 91st Psalm which is the psalm of protection that says you're basically invulnerable, you can't get hurt. So I just went for it, and I just kept surfing, even though I was actually scared to death. I just white knuckled it, just pushed myself out there. In the Old Testament, there's a time when Nehemiah, he's talking really big to Cyrus. Cyrus is the king of Persia, where the Jews were exiled. So he's getting them all excited. He's selling them this story like all the Jews are going to go back to Jerusalem. So Cyrus gets pumped up and he buys it. He says, hey, yeah, that's great. Let's do it. I support you. You can do it. And then Nehemiah said, I didn't have the guts to say, can you send an army with us? Because he had sold the guy on the dream that this was God's divine plan. So once you tell Cyrus that this is God's divine plan, you can't say, can you send some guys with swords with us too, just in case it's not? So I felt like I had to go out there and overcome my whatever fears I had. And now it's totally normal. I don't even worry about it anymore, but it really was awful for a while. And then I almost broke 3 of my toes. My toes look red and beat up. If this is on Facebook, I'm going to try to post some pictures below in the comments section. And on Instagram, I'm going to post some other photos of that. So I also had a big chunk of my foot taken out, and when I got back to the car, I was oozing blood. So I've been through a lot in my surfing adventure, and I didn't stand up the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. And around the fourth time, I started feeling like maybe something was wrong with me. Like maybe I'm just not cut out for it, or I can never be the kind of person that does it. I couldn't stand up on the surfboard. You paddle, 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 and then when the wave lifts your feet up, you pop up really fast and get your feet. But I wasn't able to do that the fourth time. And that's why I started thinking, maybe I can't do this. Like someone who has no talent for an instrument just will never be good at an instrument. But I kept pushing myself. I had persistence. So I did it the 5th time, didn't stand up. I was getting very frustrated. The 6th time, didn't stand up. The 7th time, didn't stand up. And remember, I'm cold and scared for my life and tired throughout all these times. Finally, on the 8th time, I stood up, and it was kind of, just looked very beginnerish. Just barely made it to my feet. But it was an incredible feeling because it finally paid off. All that miserable persistence, it finally paid off. And then the next couple times, I made some friends at the beach, and I surfed next to them, and I practiced popping up the same. We're paddling the same time next to each other, and then when the guy pops up, I pop up. So I learned the rhythm of it and like when the right time to pop up is. And now I can pop up 100 times out of 100 on the white water, which is the easier part to pop up. And I'm getting better at popping up on the bigger waves, bigger meaning like 4 feet, 5 feet. So I had a bunch of beginner stand-ups, which were amazing because it felt like it took so long. But then I got to the point where I'd feel a 4-foot wave coming, and your head's here, your feet's here, the wave comes and it starts to lift you like this. And this is when you want to stand up because the wave's going to push you and you're going to slide down and then you're surfing. So I pushed up and I felt the feeling that I was way higher than the ocean because I was on top of the wave. It's just like if you stood on a table or something. It was different than other surfing I'd done before because I was like way above and I was being pushed and I looked like a surfer pose in a magazine. And it only lasted maybe, like 4 seconds or 5 seconds, but it was like, oh, that's what it feels like. And it felt really, really cool. Everybody who surfs knows it feels amazing. It's just a great feeling. And I got that feeling finally after just time and time and time, just hammering away at it with very little feedback. When you practice something and you get incrementally better, you feel like something's happening. But when you practice and you just suck at it, and you just practice and practice and you suck at it, people get discouraged. I was feeling a little discouraged, but I just forced myself to keep going, and I eventually got some feeling of reward, like, oh yeah, I can do it now. And yeah, I had some cool rides. I felt like I was gliding over you can look down in the ocean, and when it's clear, you can see the sand below. So you're cruising on your surfboard, the waves pushing you. You can look down at all the stuff happening under the water, and you're just like cruising. I mean, it's really fun. So, I like to quote the Bible about persistence. The Bible basically says if you persist, you always get it 100% of the time. It's a guarantee. You don't believe me? It's in Matthew 7:7. This is about how to be successful. Keep on asking and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. Everyone who seeks finds. And to everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. That's cool. That's great. It basically says when you persist, it's 100% guarantee of success for anything you keep persisting at. There's no time limit. So you could go surfing 100 times and fail. You still keep after it, you will eventually succeed. Also, in the Old Testament, in the book of Habakkuk 3:17, it talks about being in a really difficult situation and what kind of mood you want to be in when everything around you looks terrible. Habakkuk 3:17, even though the fig trees have no blossoms and there are no grapes on the vines, even though the olive crop fails and the fields lie empty and barren, even though the flocks die in the fields and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. Everything around you is going terrible, yet rejoice in the Lord. Be full of joy. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. So your environment is terrible, but you're in a joyful mood. The sovereign Lord is my strength, meaning your environment isn't your strength. It's the sovereign Lord who's your strength, and that's why you can feel joyful during a difficult time. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer. You're sure-footed. You're not going to fall. You're not going to get pushed over. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer, able to tread upon the heights. The King James says he puts me in mine high places, meaning he puts you in what for you is your best. If you're a businessman, that means your business flourishes. If you're a baseball player, that means you get to the major leagues and hit a home run. If you're a teacher, that means you get nominated for Teacher of the Year. Whatever your high place is, he puts you there. Even if your current environment looks terrible, stay in joy and keep persistent, and you'll eventually get to where you want to be. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how Nehemiah 8:10, the joy of the Lord is our strength. I'd heard that a lot of times. It's a pretty famous quote, and I was just like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's a cool one. But I never really thought about what it meant. Strength is your ability to get stuff done. So if you're a strong bodybuilder, you can accomplish a 400-pound bench press. If you're a strong politician, you can get someone elected, or you can get legislation passed. If you're a strong businessman, you can sell $1 million worth of whatever you're selling. So your joy of the Lord is your strength. If you're trying to get something done and you're not joyful, maybe try approaching it with a joyful attitude and see if that helps get some things done. Because Habakkuk 3:17 is saying, even though everything around you is going poorly, you still rejoice in the Lord, you'll be joyful in the God of your salvation. While we're talking about joy, I just want to fast forward to John 15:11, one of my favorites. Jesus is talking to everyone, and now he explains why he's telling them this stuff. He says, I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. What kind of joy does Jesus have? Incredible joy, or just like a tiny bit of joy? When you're filled with Jesus's joy, it's so incredible, it's beyond explanation. He says your joy will overflow. It's like if you put 24 ounces of soda in a 12-ounce bottle. There's too much to hold. It's overflowing. This is what the Christian life is like. In 16... In 16, he says, sadness will be turned to joy. Your grief will suddenly turn into wonderful joy. That's 16:20. You have sorrow now, but I will see you again, then you will rejoice, and no one can rob you of that joy. That's 16:22. Nobody can rob you of your joy. The Christian life is joyful, and no one can take that away from you. You can be in tough situations, but no one can take away your joy. I tell you the truth, you will ask the Father directly, and he will grant your request because you use my name. You haven't done this before. Ask using my name, and you will receive, and you will have abundant joy. It's enough just to say joy, but you have a different type of joy: abundant joy, amazing joy, overflowing joy, Jesus' type of joy. In John 17:13, he says, I'm coming to you. I told them many things while I was with them in this world, so they would be filled with my joy. So you get it twice in 2 pages why Jesus is telling them all this stuff, why Jesus wrote the Bible for you, so you will be filled with his joy. Later, as we know, I talked about this last week, that Paul, when he's writing letters to the various churches, he says, rejoice. I say it again, rejoice. He's telling all these young churches, people who are new beginners, how to be a Christian. He says, this is how you do it. You rejoice. And for the people who didn't get it the first time, he says, and I say it again, rejoice. He really is hammering home that you're supposed to rejoice. This is the Christian life. This is how you do it. If you're not full of joy, you're doing it wrong. The Christian life is, Jesus said all this stuff so you'll be full of joy, and Paul tells you how to do it. You need to be full of joy. Another good quote from Paul writing in 2 Corinthians 13:11, he's kind of wrapping up his letter. He says, Dear brothers and sisters, I close my letter with these last words, be joyful. And then he goes on and says some other stuff, but this is like he's wrapping it up. He's writing a letter on how to be a Christian. He says, be joyful. So that's some things to think about, and I hope everyone's having a great week. And feel free to comment below. If anyone needs to get in touch with me, you can comment. And I'd like to close by saying, if you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, now is a perfect time to. And you can get in touch with me if you have questions about that. I'll see everyone later. Bye-bye.